Hi.
And we're back with Jake.
We're back with Jake Feinberg.
Thank you, Marla.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Here we are today, and I have this one question I want to ask you about Hannah. Hannah's your oldest daughter, and what's she into, and does she follow after you in any way?
Yeah, that's kind of one of the remarkable things about genetics, at least from my point of view, is just how strikingly similar you can see yourself and your kid, and then also sort of how more evolved they are. I've never ever met anybody that has as strong a constitution as Hannah. She has never once ever asked me for help with homework. She swims every night for 2 hours straight on the swim team. She is a relentless pianist and also took up the saxophone and has, I mean, she is literally the light source of my life. And in fact, I tell her this because if Asia was my firstborn, I don't know how I would have reacted. But because Hannah was the most amazing girl, I just looked at. I mean, she gave me the strength to raise Asia the same way. She's the most inspirational life force in my life. I wish her all happiness. I don't want her to ever get hurt, but I cannot tell you how impressed I am with how evolved at 14 years old. I mean, I know there's going to be some teenager types things, but I got to tell you, she holds me accountable. She knows exactly who I am. I love her more than anything in the world.
I love that you feel that way, and I think that that's important in all families that you're able to express that like that.
Well, that's the one thing we talk about love. And growing up, I mean, I must have said I love you to my mom and dad every other day. We never fought. If we fought, we'd make up within a couple hours. And always with Hannah and Asia, when it's the three of us, Asia will just say, "Love you guys." We'll say, "Love you." Cheers. There's love. That will always see it through. So that's the salient thing. I mean, even while we were doing the first part of the interview, their mothers just sent me this slew of pictures of them because we all
While we were doing the interview?
Yeah.
That's how powerful thought is.
Absolutely.
That's so amazing because thought transcends space and time. It also transcends the physical universe. So when you're thinking, you're sending forth energy, and it honestly will hit the person that it's intended for. It will, and so it must have touched
Well,
them.
and I will say this for the record too. I mean, Yaru, it was a beautiful 13 years chapter of our life. It wasn't great at the end, but I am forever indebted to her for coming into my life, for God to bring her into my life, to save me, because I was going nowhere slow.
And she's back now too.
She is, but
awesome.
she is the mother of my daughters, and
Yeah.
and I will forever be grateful
Yeah.
and appreciative of that.
I hear that from you, and I think that that's wonderful. I appreciate it, what you just said. I would like to bring up something else right now, and that has to do with if it was going to be your last interview, who would you want that to be and why?
As musician,
Anyone as your last interview that you would ever do, who would you choose to be the person that you interviewed and why?
it would be the drummer Billy Kreutzmann.
And why?
Because I never saw the Dead live once. I've never seen Billy live once. But his drumming live, what he did to keep that thing together, some people would consider it a mess, but when you have a lead bass player like Phil Lesh and a lead guitar player like Garcia, if I could, I would love to have hung with Garcia. But Billy, to me, that whole rhythm I've just been marinating. There's nothing more. There's no more go-to music that I go to than the early '80s Grateful Dead. And I think Billy looks back at that as not the happiest time in his life. You know, I know this because I've spoken to his ex-wives, his son. I've coveted his whole career. But man, he's the slipperiest dude. And I've interviewed, you know, Bill Vitt, David Garibaldi, Greg Arico, Michael Shreve, Greg Elmore. I've done every drummer. Preston left before I had a chance to interview him. I've done almost every drummer from that made that Bay Area sound. And Billy has been evading me for a long time. And someday I hope I get him on the phone. Or maybe I'll run into him at a Buddhist temple or something like that. But I also realize that it's all good either way. Like him and his, I've developed a really good friendship with his son and his wife in Los Angeles. And I do feel connected to Billy. I mean, I feel connected to all those guys. I never saw them. And I realized that I probably wouldn't necessarily have liked to see the reality of it. Because like you said, there's an underbelly of every beast. But out of any musician, if it would be my last one, I would hope Billy would spend an hour with me on the phone.
And I would like to ask you something else, and that has to do with, did you study anyone that became your mentor or your idol in broadcasting?
You know, I would go to bed at night when I was younger with a transistor radio above my head, falling asleep to sports radio, or if the Mets were on the West Coast, if it was a late game, baseball would be just channeling into my ears. Like I'd pass out to the game. Gary Cohen was a hockey announcer, also did baseball. I really loved him. And I am pretty sure he's still with us. I'm not sure if he's doing any broadcasting anymore. Bob Costas was a huge influence on me. Even though I don't watch a lot of his stuff, the stuff that I have seen with Tom Snyder is great. Ralph J. Gleason was the hippest guy in the world. Obviously not a radio guy, but he was somebody who I would have tried to channel the idea of like dragging hippie bands into the jazz world, you know, in that same milieu as the way Bill Graham promoted. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
I've noticed in listening to you and also in listening to a few of your interviews that you have this, this is just my opinion, okay? It's almost a magical lilt to your voice, number one. And number two, your voice itself has its very definitive tone and style, which allows you to be different than the sound. You know, trying to be here I am today trying to be an interviewer and I'm done and blah 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 blah. That you don't have that. You are very individualized in not only in the way that you interview people, but just the sound of your voice. I personally love it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's part of the magic of what you do, or has anyone else ever told you that?
The guys like Gary Cohen on the radio, when they would get excited and embellish their voice, it would get me really excited. Like if something really amazing happened, he had a great way of describing it. Staying cool, but still being exuberant and having his own definitive voice. You know, I used to, you know, I knew what my true nature was from I graduated with a broadcasting degree. The one thing I do want to say is that I went to a summer camp, a Jewish summer camp in upstate New York for 14 years. It made me, outside of my parents letting me kind of be the center of attention, so to speak, when I was a kid, Camp Scatico, I'd be remiss if I did not say that I spent 2 years, when you collectively add up all the months, I spent 2 years of my life there in a bunk with 25 other dudes, girl side, boy side, no air conditioning, sports all day.
Cool.
And my nickname was Shaky Jake, okay? All right? Because and it was the perfect nickname for me. But I was doing radio there, and I was doing the PA for that Holman basketball tournament. And I noticed when I embellished my voice, like, and I people would always crack up. But then what you're hearing on the radio now is a more refined Jake Feinberg, where I can just use this whatever's coming out. But that was with me. I've been working on that for a long time, and that Scatico, that camp, really taught me how to relate to people 5 years older than me and 5 years younger than me. A lot of people I notice, they can't talk to people. They either can't relate to younger cats, they can't relate to older cats, they can relate to their peers. And I love it all. I am not, to me, like I could walk in and interview Marla, I could interview Hannah. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's like there's somebody, and it's a matter of then saying, not just attaining the interview. It wouldn't be about, with Wayne Short or Herbie or Chick Corea or Billy Kreutzmann or anyone that I haven't gotten to yet, it wouldn't be about attaining the interview. It would be about getting new information into the public, into this sphere, is getting stories out of them that they have never told before. That is the magic of the Jake Feinberg Show, because that happens in every interview 3 to 4 to 5 times. And then I transcribe the stories and I blast them out on new media like Facebook. So I put them in a print form because not everybody's going to want to stream the Dave Getz interview. But if you listen to then I transcribe the Dave Getz interview, and Dave Getz is talking about the Native American drumming that he did in New York City and his jazz roots, all this stuff.
I love that.
It's always, it's almost trite to say who they were before they were famous. That's not what it is, but there's always more there. Someone said that to me, and I can't remember who it was. It's my gift is being able to look at a painting and everybody can see what's in the painting, but somehow I can just see something else in the painting. There's something else that I can somehow identify it and go right to it and extract it out.
And let me ask you this: why does that make you passionate about what you're doing? What you just said, you can see more. You have the ability to see further, a little bit further. Why is that important to you? What is it just because you are able to do that, or what makes you want to share that with other people? Tell me about that passion that you have for your job.
Well, I think that goes back to the whole idea of being able to look at yourself and say, what is my purpose? All right, what is my true nature? What is what path am I on? Instead of looking towards instead of being reactive and looking towards some higher power to say I have to follow this or that. I often use my dearest friend in Tucson is a planetary sciences professor, and he's really burned out of he's a shaman professor, and he totally burned out, and he become obsessed with Chinese language, women, culture, and he's going to move to Peking, the whole thing. But what I told him, we have very wonderful, because I'm not a scientist, but and our daughters, Hannah and his daughter, are the same age. And the one thing I love about what you asked me, why do I get off on it, is because I love creating something out of nothing. There could be nothing. You need to create your own opportunities, because then you're not being reactive. You're being proactive.
Yes.
And it's the same thing on new media.
Yes.
I will friend Clyde on new media, okay? And Clyde can read some of the material.
Yes.
If I was just receiving information all day, I would drown, okay, on new media. So my advice, and the reason you asked me this, I want to be a producer. If you produce content, and most importantly, it's compelling content or new information, then you can thrive in my mind.
And you have a chance at that point to change the universe.
Listen, the fact that Dave Getz reached out to you and said, after I listened to your interview and it was okay, that happens. I just found out about it from you now.
Yes.
But that vibration, and I've done 1,300 interviews and counting. I can't imagine how much that's happened. And I found out about some of it because people have written me or written, or
1,300.
But I mean, how many of these things that with you and Dave have happened that I don't even know about?
Yes.
And so I am affecting positive change. And what I'm doing is that's what the Tao also taught me, and Asia. I am just trying to create change in my world. Everybody looks at these existential problems, these huge macro issues. There's no way one person can do any, and there's not. But you can affect change, positive change in your world.
I love this.
And that's it.
Yes.
That's
yes.
what I did last night.
Yes.
Those guys all walked off the bandstand, and even though, they probably, after 15 minutes of all the groupies, they're like, "Where's Jake? Why doesn't Jake ever hang out after the show?" It's not my. What they're thinking about is that was a freaking awesome show. Part of the reason was because of the energy and the love that I brought to the table.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
And I'll do the same thing,
true.
and that's it. And that is so simple. And most people would say, "You're a fool."
No.
Go get a job.
No.
Go plan for retirement. My parents would say that. Why don't you? They'd still say, what about a civil service job? I mean, they're still living in like the '60s. It's like, get a retirement plan. It's like, what are you talking about? The time is now, and that's the other thing I wanted to talk about.
Yes.
When Asia, the reason I brought up the whole amnio thing about not walking out of the doctor's office, because I was not going to allow my parents to dictate my life. I was not going to have them guilt me into somehow aborting a baby that might have a disability. When Asia was born, now they didn't know about that, but when she was born, they were traumatized. And maybe if I was a grandparent, I don't want to put myself. Maybe I'd be traumatized too if my granddaughter, from the outside, had this quote unquote debilitating syndrome or whatever it is crapped up to be. My mom was so. She gushed and told everyone in our family. And I was furious because I said to her, how dare you? We want to keep this is a private thing between our family right now. And why do you have to spread this? In due time, I'll be glad to come out and talk and let people know about it. But this is a personal thing. She gushed to her sisters about it and told I was livid, and I lost my mind on them one day in our driveway, because they were flailing around with this idea of helplessness. I said, the time is now. Everything is cool. Asia is going to be an amazingly strong, powerful person. Get out of your head. It was a defining change. And you know what? Instead of just talking the talk, which is sometimes what I do, I've been walking the walk for 8 years. Amen.
Yes.
And Hannah
yes.
Hannah has given me that strength as well. The positive, just to see her and the light that's coming off of her. She could be a model if she wanted to. She is so absolutely beautiful and beyond smart. I don't know what her future is, but it is both my girls. Their future is wide open, and I'm so happy I have girls because boys are exhausting. I wouldn't want to deal with a dude, man. But yeah.
Well, I love what you just said. I really, really do.
Thank you.
I'm totally blown away by it. I would like to ask you one more question.
Of course. Marla, by the way, you have done an exceptional job of moderating this.
Well, thank you.
Considering you said you weren't good at this.
Well, listen, what I would like to know is, like, as far as metaphysical things are concerned, who was your greatest teacher in that area? Because you do have a leaning towards that side.
Well, Marla, it's people like you. I mean, I've done quite a few interviews with artists. A lot of them are what they've said is, one in particular is my teacher. His name is Tsiji Munoz. He's Puerto Rican. He grew up in the Bronx. He saw the things that he saw when he was younger were indescribable. He saw his mother thrown out of a window. His dad was in a submarine when he was born. All he knew how to do was go to the park in New York, in Brooklyn, somewhere in Spanish Harlem, and he started to play drums. And to CG, then he went to Toronto. And Paul Schaefer, you know Paul Schaefer, the piano player from David Letterman? Okay? Paul Schaefer's walking down the street one day, totally depressed. He's going to music school in Toronto, and he hears this Latin cat playing guitar on the street corner. He walks, he goes, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my life." And to see they introduce each other. Tasiji brought him into a practice studio, and the Cliff Notes version is that Paul was lost. Tasiji became his spiritual guru. At a certain point, Paul got him, and now I'm spacing on the guy's name, very famous producer, came to Tasiji and said, "Listen, the point is when Tasiji plays the guitar, it's like Jimi Hendrix. You plug it in and it's like, it goes, and he's off the grid. You can look him up after, but it's like he's operating he's in the intergalactic, and he's much old, he's your age, he's not my, and, when you hear him play, it's from another world." And so we did some interviews, and then I went to his house in upstate in New York, and I slept over one night in a room that, it was in his house. It was like, I don't think anybody's ever done that before. And I'll never forget, I woke up in the morning, or he goes, "If you want to come out of your cave," he's like, "maybe you can come in and we can do some work." And I'll never forget the look he gave me. This was like 3 years ago. It was like a puzzled look. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. And I had really not really gone out on this. I hadn't yet started my trip yet. But I'll never forget that look in his eyes. He gave me my spirit name, which is Sem Lodro, which is spirit of mind. Okay?
And that's true.
And that is true. And we don't speak all the time. But I feel like Marla and Tasiji, and even my peers. So many of these guys have instilled me with a spiritual fire that burns so hot. So the idea of having all this stuff has been a levitative thing. To say that I've been steeped, the Guru Gita, that's one thing I want to say, is that what I'm still working on, my habitual nature, which is really what the Tao is about, because your habitual nature is always getting in the way of your true nature. And what I struggle with is discipline and focus and consistency and patience and so many of these things. So like to sit down and read the Guru Gita is a real chore. So I want to get to a point, I'm saying this now, where I could just read 3 sentences from him. What's his name? Who wrote the Guru Gita? Who wrote the Guru Gita?
No, Muktananda is singing the Guru Gita.
So I just would like to be able to, at some point in the near future, and you said this will never happen, but is to just be at peace and be able to read some of these words, and they really resonate. I feel like a dervish. I feel like I'm spinning so fast.
I wanted to ask you about
It's so hard to just stop for some reason. And I've been saying, and that's one reason I bring this urgency to the bandstand with the musicians. I just feel that time is short. Life is short.
you when you're in this body, you don't need to stop. You're doing great. Don't worry about that. The fact that you want that, it will come to you anyway, just by that desire.
That's still my habitual, that anticipate, exactly, and I've gotten a lot better at saying that's just that your habitual nature.
Not time yet. You just wait and it'll come. I promise you. But what I see in you is that you have all those things in your interviews: the patience.
Yeah, that's right.
The focus.
Yes.
You have all those
Yes.
things. And when you apply them, I've watched you apply them, and when you apply them, they're all just crisp. They're right there.
I agree.
So that
I'm talking
part-
about constitutionally.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
when
I
listen, I'm going to go to Sacramento, and then I'm going to go to LA, and then I'm
Yeah.
going to go home.
Yeah.
And when I'm sitting a week from now thinking about this adventure,
Yes.
I just want to be able to read the Guru Gita, 2 paragraphs, and say, and read every word, and not be rushed, not be in a rush. Because the only time that I really feel like I'm in a yogic state is when I'm behind the microphone.
Then that's where you should be.
I've been there 1,400 times and counting.
And keep going.
That's what amen to that.
And that's what your dharma is. That's where you are. And as far as the Guru Gita is concerned, remember Arjuna, the great warrior, and he said, if 1,000 suns burst forth in the universe, none could outshine the splendor of the Almighty Lord. Those 2 lines of the Guru Gita, when you catch up to them, give me a call.
I will.
Yeah, that's
the guru.
Learn that. That is such an amazing program. And Arjuna, of course, being the archer, the greatest archer, the best. You're like that in many ways with your mind, with your ability, with your mind, and you personally bring things out with people, and you keep them focused while they're. I've watched. You did it with me when you interviewed me.
I know.
So
I just know that if I can slow down if I can get into a yogic state, because I don't believe, I do have a quote from Maharishi in my book, in the 3rd page, and it's an amazing quote, and I wish I had it queued up, but he talks about it, achieving a certain place through transcendental meditation. And I would just say to whoever will eventually watch this is that meditation is, in pop culture, people think of it as a sedentary thing. You have to be in yoga or, in the sitting. That is not true. You could be playing drums and it's a yogic state. You could be behind the microphone and that's meditation. So when people read that in my book, The Cats Volume 1,
The Cats Volume 1, I love it.
I mean, on the bandstand of life with master musicians. That's the subtitle. But the thing is that meditation, for me, is not your boutique yoga studio trying to reach some place of bliss. I don't do what I do for bliss. I do it to fucking live.
And you know what? I agree with you 100%, and you've just blown my mind completely, like you always do. I appreciate
you guys so much for being interested and also
so
just being so kind to.
Yeah.
I
have last question about when is your book coming out? When?
I got to be honest with you. We got a rough copy coming from Amazon as we speak. I'm hoping this puppy gets out before Thanksgiving.
Okay, and then as it's coming out, blah, 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 are you going to go on a book tour?
Yeah, it's really funny you bring this up because it's nice to talk to you about this and sort of put everything into motion. You have to sort of, create the thing before it happens.
Yes, yeah.
And so already, one thing I do is I create something out of nothing. So then I create the book. The book comes out of all this stuff, and then it's like, how can I I don't know what the right word is, but parlay this into other opportunities, right? So what I'm going to do is I have faculty. Dave Liebman's in the book. He's a very spiritual saxophone player. He teaches at the New School in New York. Steve Davis is a trombone player. He teaches at the Hart School of Music. So now, write up a proposal. Say, hey, they're my buddies. They love me. Hey, man, can I come and do a lecture for your class about the book? Because kids today in music academia, because that's where music is being made, is being made in academia now. It's not being made on the street the way you guys did. And jazz curriculums, these kids are being force-fed so much theory. They don't have time for any of the spiritual stuff. And this book is all about the spiritual quality of music. So the idea would be to come and lecture, get paid.
God, that's a great idea.
All right? Yeah. Music, and from that, whatever, it's going to have a whole new sort of universe. And there's already another book in the pipeline. The Cats, there'll be about 20 volumes of the Cats. All right, but the second book, just to let you know, is epic. It's about the Grateful Dead, except it's about all the side projects. I've interviewed every dude that's been in every side project of every member of the band.
Wow, Julie Stratton's going to have her name in there too.
She very well might. If I can get to Julie, God bless you, Julie. And but all I'm going to say is that in a month when you guys are sitting around and Clyde's throwing another log on the fire, I want you guys to, I really can't wait for you to smile, and because in this book is very much exactly what, all I care about is that people who might be struggling in any way, shape, or form, all it takes is for them to read one vignette from any one of these cats, and it will inspire them to get out and do and be themselves.
And that's what you do in your interviews. And on that note, I think that we should probably bring this to a close for now.
Great jam.
Just
Great
for now.
jam. Thank you
And
so much.
this was Jake Feinberg. You'll always remember him.
We'll see you later.
Yeah. Bye.